Kowalski. He wrote and performed the lyrics with musicians The Thing of Twins, and he known Ruth for years, but had no idea that she played the mother in the Hot for Teacher video. And because he was such a Van Halen fan, when he found out about it, he wanted her to pay homage, and he asked her to reprise her role. And he said Ruth was a wonderful professional. She came in and recreated the role in one take. So if you guys want to check that out, check that out. This rap makes no sense. It's Ruth Silvera. What do you think of that, Dave?
Nice to see people still playing tribute to classic Van Halen videos.
That's true. That's true. Now, Eddie Van Halen was going to be part of the Indy 500 in a way through his stripes, but it never came to be. So in the Indianapolis 500, apparently the number 25 Andretti Autosport Honda was going to be completely striped with Eddie's red, white, and black stripes, and Wolfgang was going to promote his new album with Mammoth WVH in association with Andretti Autosport and the number 25 Honda car on the May 30th Indy 500. But somehow, as part of the pre-race ceremonies, Wolfgang was meant to perform the song Distance and also unveil the car with the Frankenstein guitar stripes and stuff like that. But for reasons unknown, the whole promotional plan fell through. So there's images of the car, but it never happened. Dave, what do you think happened here?
I don't know. I think it would have been cool, but maybe Wolf just didn't want to be associated with Van Halen that way.
I think that's what it was.
And that's why it was not meant to be.
Interesting. Now, if you remember our last episode, we did a tribute to Phil Naro, and a tribute to Phil Naro was done on Facebook on June 6th, and here friends shared stories and paid homage to the late singer from Tallis, and the event included Billy Sheehan, Jim Crean, Michael Hund, Junior LeCirque, Ron Bumblefoot, Mitch Perry, Steve Major, and Steve Hogue, and this took place in honor of Phil Naro on June 6th, and you guys can check that out if you want to check it out. It's still available there. Also on Facebook, which was interesting, Terry Kilgore. Dave, remember Terry? He was one of our former guests on the podcast. He was the guitarist for David Lee Roth in the 1994 album, Your Filthy Little Mouth, and on that tour. He also played on half of the DLR Band albums. David Lee Roth did one of his Soggy Bottoms, where he talked about, I did 3 world tours with the Van Halen brothers on the same bus. Nothing scares me, but let's stay focused. This was part of one of his Soggy Bottom cartoons. Well, Terry Kilgore wrote, I did 2 records with you, and I could crush Godzilla like a worm. Somehow I'm not seeing that in any pipe dream, but stranger things have happened. We did have a lot of laughs and a lot of guffawing. He's a damn good gym coach. Talking about David Lee Roth. So Terry Kilgore coming out of the woodwork, Dave, making comments about Dave's stuff. What do you think of that?
Interesting.
Yeah, I wonder what's going to happen if those two will rekindle their relationship. Now, a couple of Eddie books are coming out, and they're coming out fast and furious. We're going to have 1 million of these books in the fall. Van Halen, The Eruption and the Aftershock. It's coming out by Michael Christopher. Michael Christopher is known for his book that he wrote on Depeche Mode, All That's Left to Know About the World's Finest Synth Pop Band. It's coming out on October 1st, Dave. You can believe that. It's like another one of these books that are coming out right around the 1-year anniversary of Eddie's passing, and it says it tells a story of how one of America's greatest bands weathered arguably the most dramatic soap opera in rock and roll history, with songs that would weave themselves into the fabric of every musician who heard them, alongside an incendiary and unrivaled live show, featuring exclusive interviews with insiders, fans, and artists who were there to witness the rise and the making of these legends. It's a story to be read and to be believed. So, very interesting. He is also a regular contributor to Ultimate Classic Rock, Loudwire, and LA Weekly, as well as has a lifestyle column in the Daily Times from Philadelphia. So, that's another book. We'll try to have him on the podcast, see if we can get that going. And another book is coming from photographer Neil Zlozower. Now, Neil has put out 2 Van Halen books, one on Van Halen, one on Eddie, and he's doing a new Van Halen book. It is currently about Eddie, and it's coming out in November of this year, and no details about it, but that other than that it's coming and when it's coming. And that wraps up Van Halen news.
And that's the way it is. Good night.
Oh my God, and we are on to what else? Wolf's album, Mammoth WVH. Dave and I are going to do a deep dive discussion, always discussing every track on the album. We've been waiting 3 years for this one, and we're going to get right into all 14 tracks, followed by our interview with Neil Zlozower, photographer extraordinaire. This is an old interview. I'm going to explain this a little bit. So I did this interview prior to Eddie's passing, and I was holding it to pair it with something else, but the other something else is going to take too long, and I didn't want you guys to wait for this, so I'm going to release this interview now. It's an interview with Neil Zlozower. Neil is as charismatic as Roth. He's a wild man, and he's a nice guy, and he's funny, and he's full of life. And wow, is he a talented photographer. And if you guys know Van Halen photos, he's took some of the most iconic in history, and he has a treasure trove. Lots of cool stories to go with that, but, of course, we can't let an episode go by unless we torture Dave with tons of letters. So we're going to pummel him with letters, and he is going to be buried under them because I know he loves it so much. And that is all coming up next. Take a listen.
There's only one dynasty that can ever happen for a given team. I don't care if you're playing basketball or if you're playing football or it's a political scenario. And when you're lucky enough to have a writing team like Eddie Van Halen and myself, it's the same as Jagger, Richards, and what have you. You can't replace that kaboom just with impunity there.
If you need a dose of VH, get a taste of the closest thing. Romeo Delight, the ultimate Van Halen tribute band. Playing all the hits from the David Lee Roth era, first classic 6 albums, plus deep cuts, some of which have never been played live before by the band. They even throw in popular tracks from the Sammy Hagar era and solo hits. The most viewed Van Halen tribute band on YouTube, Romeo Delight, doing customized recreations of staging, instruments, and costumes from the classic Van Halen era. They even perform entire Van Halen albums in sequence. Romeo Delight plays theaters, casinos, summer indoor and outdoor festivals, and special events. They're also available for private parties. To contact them, call Bud Blanche at 215-704-5144. That's 215-704-5144. Or via email at sonicparade1@yahoo.com. Romeo Delight, the ultimate Van Halen tribute band.
Hello, everyone. This is Billy Sheehan, your bass player, and you're listening to my dear friends Dave and Dave Unchained.
Author Greg Renoff is back with a new book, Ted Templeman, A Platinum Producer's Life and Music. The new biography of the record producer Ted Templeman, who went on to produce Van Halen, the Doobie Brothers, Van Morrison, Aerosmith, Sammy Hagar, and more. The book, which runs $19.95, and it's currently available at Amazon.com. From the man who brought you Van Halen Rising comes Ted Templeman, A Platinum Producer's Life and Music, written by Templeman as told to Greg Renoff. Available for only $19.95 at Amazon.com. Order it today.
Check out the new podcast, The Rock Quarry, your place to hear in-depth interviews with some of rock's most colorful characters, with your host, entertainment journalist David J. Criblay. The Rock Quarry is available for free on Spreaker and iTunes. You can check us out on Facebook at The Rock Quarry Podcast, on Twitter at Rock Quarry Pod, on Instagram at The Rock Quarry Podcast, or email us at therockquarrypodcast@gmail.com.
I really do like my fans and having people that I can bring joy to and enlighten them to be happy. You know what I mean? Show them, I want to show my fans how to live. That's kind of what, so I got to find different avenues to do that. Because on stage, I got to put on kind of a show and a little bit, or I'm busy. I'm up there and I can't just sit and talk to them all night. So I'd rather write shows and write books and do TV appearances and do seminars or anything to where I can still be around my fans, still keep them happy, and they keep me happy.
All right, Dave, you know what time it is.
Well, my buddy Dave, he
don't want me around. He says he's tired of watching me let him down. He just wants a good mailbag. He wants only the best. But he hates disappointment better than all the rest. And he says that he thinks that I'm headed for a whole lot of trouble. Well, he thinks that I'm headed for a whole lot of trouble. Well, he thinks that I'm headed for a whole lot of trouble if I don't nail the mailbag intro.
That's right, it's mailbag time again. And oh my God, this guy's cracking the whip hard tonight. So we got to get right into it. Letter number 1 coming from Arthur Babel from Utah. And he says, I think Sammy in Van Halen was more popular and even made more money due to the fact how the bands made sales in the early years differ. Let me explain. Any band in the 70s that got people to buy the album multiple times through 8-track, cassette, and then records, and then CD, to the same album, they all got sales multiple times. But the bands only who made albums in CD times only sold it one time. So I ask if Dave could round up a good number to see if the Roth years are inflated sales due to people buying the album every time it comes out in new formats, and Sammy albums mainly had people buying it once. Arthur Babel. That's kind of a good point there, Dave, right? This is an interesting perspective, for sure. However, I don't know if it's even possible to get an accurate count, right? I mean, that just seems like it's almost an unfeasible thing because the album sales tracking is stronger during the Sammy years because they had the sound scan era and the use of computers and stuff like that. But if anything, the Dave albums should be even more missing sales, to be honest with you, because there was a lack of counting at that time, and there might be even more albums sold than actually counted. But listen, if I bought 1984 on cassette, album, CD, that's for sure. That's just me. Here's the thing. I think that if people still have the desire to plunk down their money on multiple times for the same album, should still count as album sales, right? I mean, what do you think, Dave?
It does. And I think his point is that, Dave albums might be inflated because they were around longer and, people were double buying them as the format changed. And that affects it to a point. But, I don't think it sways the numbers so much that, there's like a tripling up of the Dave numbers more than it should be.
Yeah, well, that's true. Letter number 2 comes from Vegas Paul Davis, Dave, your favorite nickname. And he says here he really enjoyed our podcast reviews of Marching to Mars and Gary's album Exit Elvis from Tribe of Judah. And he also said, what if we took the best 5 from Marching to Mars and 5 from his next album, Red Voodoo? Now, that would be an amazing record. He sings Marching to Mars, Who Has the Right, Little White Lie, Would You Do It for Free, Both Sides Now, Red Voodoo, Mas Tequila, Shag, The Love, and Right on Right. What do you think of that? We're going to go right into What If territory. Now it's time for What If with Dave and Dave. Shit, what if? What if Dave Marconi's favorite segment, What If? What if, motherfucker?
I don't do what ifs.
Well, listen, Marching to Mars has some really good stuff on it, but I really feel it was rushed. It was not enough rock on there. Hagar really stayed away from anything that would rival VH, basically. I think the fans were a little bit confused, in my opinion, but you can't really fuse albums together. That's not really fair. That's like what greatest hits are for. We always said there's always good parts to a Sam album and there's not so good parts, but that's pretty much part for any album, and you can't really do that with other artists and make one good album. But what do you think, Dave?
You could take, any 2 or 3 of 6 albums, put together, and you'll get a greatest hits. That's not a problem. But, Sam, that's a problem for him because that means, half the album is men's amends.
Right, right.
So, what are you going to do?
Okay.
That's all, folks.
Well, letter number 3 comes from Southeast Nice Guy Kurt Lonkos. I don't know.
Yeah, we'll never get it right.
Let it go. He says there's an event which is held every August called Rockin' Pod, which is created by Chris Sinzak and Aaron Camaro from the Disciple Geek podcast. Many